Good afternoon and welcome to Penn State Lehigh Valley. I'd like to welcome you to the inaugural event of LaunchBox Ladies from Passion to Profit. My name's Mike Kreisa. I'm an assistant teaching professor here at Penn State, and I'm also the faculty liaison for Lehigh Valley LaunchBox. I would like to thank the Student Business Society, which have been outside and helping to coordinate this, for sponsoring this entire Global Entrepreneurship Week. I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you. Make sure you visit them in the lobby after our presentation and get more information about this very active student group on campus and the rest of this week's activities. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Chancellor, Dr. Tina Richardson of Penn State Lehigh Valley, who has been the force behind LaunchBox Ladies. Dr. Richardson.
Good afternoon, everyone. That is so sad. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of the first-time visitors to the campus, and I'd also like to thank those who are returning for multiple visits. It is a delightful thing to look out into the room and see so many people supporting this event. As Mike indicated, this is our inaugural event, and it's very important to Penn State Lehigh Valley. It's very important to our students. Can the students quickly stand? Thank you. It's important to the students that you're here because they see the representation, the wonderful representation that we have in the community, and they have an opportunity to reach out to inquire about your journey, your experiences, and gain insight from you. So it is just a wonderful thing that we can come together as a community to support this inaugural event, LaunchBox Ladies. When the idea of coming together around entrepreneurship and women was put in front of me, it came to my awareness because several students had indicated that they were great students and they were excited about their majors in it could have been in biology or some STEM-related field, but they didn't feel like they were entrepreneurs or that there were entrepreneurial opportunities on the horizon for them. They said, you know, I'm just a biology student or I'm just a psychology student. And there was an absence of an understanding of how those degrees could be converted into opportunities and how their passions could be converted into opportunities. So we came together today because a team of individuals thought that we could put on an event that would be relevant to the broader community and that would incorporate some of the needs and aspirations of our students who have untapped potential in the entrepreneurship space. We've come together because there's a very real need. There's a need to respond to what we know are global statistics and national realities about entrepreneurship and women. So let me start by giving you some of the good news. Every month, about 260 out of every 10,000 women choose entrepreneurship. 4 in 10 new entrepreneurs are women. 44% of those starting firms are women of color. The growth in female billionaires is outpacing the growth of male billionaires, and women entrepreneurs plan to create more jobs than their male counterparts in the near future. Yet female-owned businesses tend to start smaller and stay smaller. Only 10% of venture capital around the world went to women between the years of 2010 and 2015. In fact, while male-owned businesses started with a whopping $58 billion in funding in 2016, women received a mere $1.5 billion. In addition to funding, 48% of female founders reported that a lack of available advisors and mentors limited their professional growth, and that is why we're here today. Our hope is that this event and the consecutive and subsequent LaunchBox Ladies events will encourage all of you to become the support system that others seek. There are so many women on a startup journey, and they need the support and collective responsiveness of all of us. With the safety net and the sage advice from other female founders, we can bridge the gap between men versus women-owned scalable businesses. And so I welcome you to the event today, and we all are challenged to be the network that we need. I want to give a special thanks to the LaunchBox Ladies Chancellor's Advisory Council members, Catherine Bailey, if you could wave, Ann Alexander, Dr. Nicola Gutgold, and students Kristen Brandon, and who's not here today, she's working, and Jackie Khalil, and our interviewer today, Ashley Russo. Ashley is a three-time Emmy Award-winning executive producer. She is president of ASR Media Productions and host of Peak TV and St. Luke's Health Now. Certainly, she is an exceptional entrepreneur in her own right, and we thank each and every one of them for being involved in planning this event, and we especially thank Ashley for emceeing the event.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Russo. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Penn State Lehigh Valley for having me here today, and I'd really like to thank the ladies that Dr. Richardson listed, Ann and Kathy, the ladies that we've gotten together. Val has been incredibly instrumental in pulling this all together, and all the support team from David and Mike across Penn State Lehigh Valley. The students are awesome. It was great having them in these planning sessions and discussions. I want to just say a little bit about my background. I actually grew up with a mom who I watched work her way up to being a CEO of a family business, and that was an inspiration for me, and that was something I was able to see happen. And what we're hoping from this is that you will take away, not everyone has that person in their life. So we want you to know that you're full of a room of women and people who are here to support you, your ideas, your endeavors, and wherever you want to go. Females are so underfunded, and LaunchBox Ladies is here to let you know that there is funding available. Julie Knight, who sits on the board of LaunchBox, wanted me to make sure that I told you guys that there is funding out there. So if you have an idea, if you have a business, and if you're going somewhere, please make sure that you know that Penn State Lehigh Valley and LaunchBox is here to support you, and they want to get you involved in our community and to create meaningful entrepreneurial businesses that can impact all of us. So thank you all for being here today. All right, without further ado, I am so excited to have entertainer and entrepreneur Tanya Wright joining us today. Tanya grew up in the Bronx. She's a graduate of Vassar College, and she launched her career as an actress on The Cosby Show as Theo's girlfriend, which of course is how I first remember why I recognized her face. I get very excited. So it was a great show. She went on to appear in some of the most critically acclaimed television shows of our time, including ER, NYPD Blue, 24, and The Good Wife. Today, Tanya may best be known for her roles as Crystal Bursett on the Netflix series Orange is the New Black, and as Deputy Kenya Jones on HBO's True Blood. See if you recognized some of her characters. You know, Tanya, you watch those clips and you see not only are you an incredibly talented actress because you have such a depth and breadth to your roles and so believable, but they tend to be stronger, outspoken women. But what people may not know is that you were actually a shy child. You were terrified of raising your hand in class, and you really didn't want to be in the spotlight. So where did that confidence come from for you to start acting, and what kind of voice did it give you?
So I tend to think it's one of those cruel and unusual tricks that the universe plays on us sometimes, right? I was a shy child. I was so quiet as a kid. Really, as a baby, my mother had me when she was very young, when she was a teenager, when she was 15 years old. So I imagine she didn't know much how to deal with a child. But I was a very, very quiet baby, and I never or rarely cried. And she told me the story. Now she's like, oh, God. But she actually pricked me with a pin one time to see if I would actually cry. And I did, loud. And so yeah, it was a, you know, how I got to be on all of these shows is a wondrous mystery. I did not set out to be an actor. Certainly as a shy and introspective child, writing was something that came very naturally, right? Writing is something that's very internal. You just need a paper and a pen, and you need yourself and you need your imagination. I've always had a wicked imagination. I spent countless hours of my life as a child daydreaming a lot and was reprimanded by my grandmother for many years for daydreaming, but you know, it's in my daydreams that I create ideas for companies, for stories, for characters. So my daydreams have proven to be fruitful for me.
Is there a moment in time that you can recall that first time that you took on a role or a character and you really felt a connection with it, even if it was at home or a school play? Was there a time that you can recall that connection or that light kind of flipped on for you?
Well, something flipped on for me. The first audition and first role I ever had was on The Cosby Show. And it was a light switch for sure. But like I said, you know, I was a shy child, and at the time, The Cosby Show was the biggest show in the world. So it's not something that I would sort of naturally gravitate toward. It sort of came for me and pulled me in. It was a lot. It was no one to talk to about these uncomfortable feelings I had, and I stopped doing it. But there was, and that's the sort of external parts of acting that, you know, to this day I don't always feel comfortable with. But the internal parts of it, the part of being present and truthful to a character and in the moment was something that resonated with me. So that was a moment. It was a light switch. I didn't know what it all meant at 15. I'm a little bit more cognizant of it now, but
it
that's
started
when it turned
something.
on. Yeah.
You mentioned writing and how writing can be such an introspective but also sort of cathartic experience. And people may not know that you lost a sibling, you lost your brother, and in the time right after his passing, in 8 days, in fact, you wrote a screenplay for Butterfly Rising.
Right.
Tell me about that time in your life and what that tragic experience, how you were able to put that into words.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, we all have our defining moments, right? Some of us have many. You know, I haven't been on the planet that long enough to have that many. The death of my brother was certainly a defining moment. Many of us have experienced death. And I think that we are presented, when there's death, we're presented with the opportunity of which route we're going to take. Are we going to let it drown us in grief and stupor? Or are we going to, and it might be that happens for a moment, or for a long moment, or for a couple of years, but at some point we have to decide we're going to do something with this, and maybe even be a help to others. And so I think that my grief was profound after my brother's death. Fortunately, I'm an artist. Fortunately, I'm an artist. So I had some place to put it. So I was obsessed with butterflies at that time in my life. I had a house, and there was a tree right in front of the house, and butterflies were swarming always in front of this tree. And again, the daydreams. So I started looking at the butterflies. I started imagining stories of these butterflies. I started imagining that my brother was somehow in the butterfly. So I started to do some research on Google, because sometimes it's just interesting to understand why you're attracted to certain things you don't really know. And to my surprise, you know, there's some Greek lore that souls who have departed reside in the body of butterflies.
And there they were, right outside your house,
they were.
drawing your attention every day.
Yeah. And I was very attracted to a story in the Bible, Mary and Martha. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that story, but there are two sisters in the Bible who had a brother named Lazarus who died. That was something that obviously resonated for me for obvious reasons. I needed to believe that somehow my brother was still around. And I made this story about these two women who were not literal sisters, they are metaphorical sisters, one black, one white. They take a road trip to meet a man named Lazarus. And it's their defining moment. And their lives change as a result. So that was a very healing process, the book and I also wrote,
I was
directed.
just going to say, you actually put it into a book.
Yeah.
And what do you hope the message is that people take away from the Butterfly Rising in its various forms?
Well, transformation. So the butterfly is broken down into 4 stages: egg, cocoon, caterpillar, and butterfly. And I think that there's an opportunity there for us to understand and embrace the idea of transformation after some sort of defining moment.
Well, you certainly, show us how to embrace transformation, because going from acting to writing, and then the story is that in 2012 you had a roommate. She moved out. She left oils. Is this all true so far?
It's actually...
And you experimented with it,
Okay.
right? And started, and this became a hair care line. You have a really well-known hair care line. If you didn't see it, you need to stop in the back. But Harriet of Harlem.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are the origins of those? I don't want to say your first foray into entrepreneurialism, because I think you wrote a book. You had your own brand as an actress, but now you were launching an actual product.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like?
So that was actually a fictitious story. So there's a web series called Harriet of Harlem. So Harriet is my hair care line, and it's a hair care line made with fruit and oil. And that was born, and I would say, it was actually the death of my brother actually started me on this journey toward entrepreneurship. I like to think that acting is inherently an entrepreneurial pursuit, and I think that the hair care line is really just an extension of that. So my life sort of went in tumult after the death of my brother. In 2010, my life was rebuilding, but it was looking a little different, right? It was feeling a little different. It wasn't like I was going to go back to my old self. It was like, this is a new self, and this is an interesting self. This is some things that I'm very interested in, and that it never even really occurred to me that I would be interested in. I had recalled, sometime in 2010, I remember when I was little, I was watching this television show, and there was this woman. She was head of Hewlett-Packard. Her name was Carly Fiorina, and I was mesmerized by this woman. There was something about her that was very interesting. And though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be when I was 10, and I remember thinking I wanted to be that. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know who she was, but it was something about her that resonated really strongly with me. And in 2010, I get a lot of ideas when I'm walking my dog, Macarena. And I was walking my dog, and I was like, okay, my life is looking a little different now. Interesting. I'm really interested in my hair. Why am I interested in my hair? I don't know why I'm interested in my hair. But then there's the rabbit hole. I can get very fixated and focused on a thing, and it's like a dog with a bone, right? I'm a Taurus, so any Tauruses in the room? We tend to be very passionate and get very focused, and it's like this. There is nothing, there's only hair, there's only hair. So I just go on this whole hair rabbit hole. Hair, the business of hair, gosh, this is a booming business. Physiology in hair, sociology in hair, the politics of hair, the history of hair.
Who knew hair was so complicated?
Hair is a very interesting part of our bodies.
Yes.
More interesting than we probably would even imagine. Do you know that every ancient culture in the history of the world has some lore as it relates to hair? That if I dropped a lock of hair on the ground right now, you would be able to examine that hair. You would be able to see how much water I had in my body. There are religions around the world that think our emotions and our thoughts and our ideas dwell in our hair. If I killed someone, they would be able to know within a shadow of a doubt if it was me because of my hair, the DNA that's in my hair. So it's a very interesting part of our body. It has a lot of information about us. It's on our heads, obviously, so that when we engage a person for the first time, there's some information there that we're transmitting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting to me. So when I started to do all this research around hair, I spent countless hours on YouTube, and it's a very interesting community on YouTube, those of you who have spent time on it. But I found it to be a very sharing community. And there were lots and lots of women sharing information and ideas about hair care products, hair care styles, hair care. So I thought it would be interesting to create a business around hair but do it in a way that I hadn't seen done before, right? So the world doesn't need another shampoo. But if I'm going to make a shampoo, why is this shampoo going to be different? It's got to be different. There's no reason to make it. So I started to do lots of research about ingredients. Kokum butter, which is a fruit from India, and marula oil, which is a very lightweight, dry oil, are both in the Ayurvedic system of medicine. An Ayurvedic system is the Indian system of healing, where oils and food and spices are used to heal the body. I was very interested in this. So this kokum butter was very great for the inside of the body. It was also great for the outside of the body. It was also really great for hair. I created a web series because what I realized during my time online was that women are very emotionally attached to their hair. So there was an opportunity to tell a story, which at the end of the day, that's what I know how to do best and most. So I created the hair care line, and I also created a web series called Harriet of Harlem based on my early days of being an actress and my relationship with my hair, and wrote a book called I Found God in My Hair, which is a collection of spiritual principles I learned from my hair. There it is.
Yeah.
Like patience and resilience and letting go, and how I apply those principles to my everyday life.
I think what's fascinating in researching any sort of endeavor, and as people are thinking about their own path and their own journey and where they're going, there really is a lot of time and research that went into it. This wasn't something that you thought about it, but you really did the hard work that went along with it. And I think wrapped in a lot of the history and a lot of the meaning and a lot of the psychology behind hair. And then you were able to really morph it all together through a book and through a series. We want to take a look at one of the clips from Home for the Holidays.
Oh, okay.
I think what's so powerful about these pieces is that you're telling a story that in some way I believe everybody in the room could relate to one element of that story or another. Mm-hmm. And so you really have become what is now coined a content-driven entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And you're not just creating a product, but you're creating content around it. Was that a conscious decision? And how important is that to driving your brand?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was not a conscious decision. It was a very organic decision. Even if it was a decision, you just stay in the flow of something, right? And you sort of obey in the direction that you're going. I obviously have a career as an actor and a writer and a director. And so it was just really a natural progression. And it was a natural, happy one because, right now I'm the only one doing something like this specifically in this space. And I've got to get it ramped up kind of quick to make sure that I, be the first one because there's that. So yeah, it was a natural, organic progression.
But I think it's something that you've tapped into that people are paying, are being mindful of,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that it isn't just the product, that there has to be that passion behind it. There
Right.
has to be that drive. We started with an early story of shyness,
Yeah.
talked about loss,
Mm-hmm.
talked about roommates and evolution and writing, and all of those things have sort of led you to this point. Now you're really a forward-facing entrepreneur. How has that changed your life, and how is it changing what the next steps look like?
Yeah, I don't know if it's changed my life. I think it's broadened my life and deepened my life and widened my life. What I'm experiencing as an entrepreneur is really not that different from what I've experienced as an actor most of my life. You have to be terribly resourceful as an entrepreneur who is self-funding her business. That's a real thing, self-funding and fulfilling the product and doing the social media and negotiating with distributors and dealing with the lab and sometimes delivering the products to the Whole Foods. I mean, it's more than a notion, and using my own money to do it, and all of my time and energy and creative passion, and will to keep it going. And so, right now with the business, it's so right now Harriet is in 9 Whole Foods in the Northeast area, in New York, New Jersey area. We're also in about 35 hair supply stores. We're on Amazon, and there were a couple opportunities that have presented itself that I could not fully take advantage of because I have not been adequately capitalized.
You talk about that. I want to get to that. How many women in the room have identified with any piece of this entrepreneurial journey? Any piece of that? Right. So a lot of you, and I know a lot of you personally, and so that's why I asked that question, because I know from personal stories of some of you the challenges that come along. I think that what I want to point out about Tanya is I think people see she's a really well-known and talented actress. She's a really well-known and talented author and writer. But she's living in this entrepreneurial space, and she's fighting the fight the same way every single one of us who's doing this is doing it. I hope that that brings encouragement. What are you hoping women are hearing from your story, and what are you finding from women in this space, in that commonality, that aren't, famous?
Right. Well, you know what? You're absolutely right. This journey is a universal journey. And I think that, some people make the assumption that because, I'm on fancy TV shows that there's some sort of big engine behind my entrepreneurial thing. No, I went to Whole Foods. I talked up the buyer. I gave her the samples. And I kept doing that thing and doing that thing until, it was 1 Whole Foods and it was 9 Whole Foods. Now, I will tell you, every lead for me is a bit of a warm lead, right? It helps that I'm on a show that most people know and a lot of people like. It helps. We all have a superpower, though, right? Mine is that I'm an actor. I spent 30 years of my life doing that. And if it ain't helping me now, then shame on me, right? We all have something. That's a superpower. Find it and use it as a key to get into the door.
Yeah, and persistence.
Yeah.
Persistence.
And absolute persistence, I mean, one of the things that, as an actor, I've been, again, on lots of TV shows that people know about. I can't tell you the number of auditions that I've had over the years that I didn't get. Hundreds. And I say, hundreds, okay? Here I am. I'm still going and working and doing all of that. But if I, had let the 100 stop me, then it would just stop me. And it's not fun in that,
Right.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I get up, I dust myself off. After you've been rejected hundreds of times, you don't get too caught up in the it's not that precious to you. Certainly as an actor, it's part of the business. You know, yeah, okay. Well, you just keep going because eventually somebody's going to say yes. Somebody's going to say yes. And sometimes you have to say yes to yourself first before other people will say yes to you. And that's probably what I've learned most from the business. Is investing in myself first. And that was right and good and appropriate. I think it's best, you have to invest in yourself before you ask anyone to invest in you.
What an incredible message, because I think as women, we often put ourselves last.
Yeah.
And we think forward-facing, and we think about whether it's our family or our friends or our parents or our children. So investing in yourself, I think, is an important message. And I like what you said about the superpower.
Yeah.
It's smart to use that superpower. We were lucky enough to have you a couple of years ago at the Women's Summit out here with your mom and your sister. And then just recently, we had Carla Harris from Morgan Stanley, and her big message was, use your connections. Use your network.
Right.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad action. That's something you should really be tapping into and taking advantage of. So I love that messaging that you're giving out.
Yeah, well, you actually, it's not even, you should. You have to. It takes a village to create a company. And you can't do it alone. And, I've been a solopreneur, but I am now at the point in the business, it's, 2.5 years, where I've done all these things that I told you about. Now it is very clear to me that the business cannot go on and it cannot grow without being adequately capitalized and having a team, period. And now I don't go anyplace else until that happens. I had an opportunity to be in a very large retailer with the brand, and I could not fulfill and deliver because I didn't have the capitalization. And so we're not doing that again.
And a lot of us get to that point. I think that, of course, certainly a huge goal, if not the main goal of LaunchBox, certainly LaunchBox Ladies, is to provide, some startup funding. But it sometimes takes that and then more. What are some of the challenges you're finding around funding, and what's the messaging that you think needs to happen and advice people can get when they're at this exact spot that you're finding yourself in?
Yeah. Well, raising money for a business is a very different animal than running the business, right? These are two completely different things that almost have nothing to do with each other. They work together, but it's a different skill set, it's a different mindset, it's a different way about doing things. And so I am, very actively meeting with investors about raising money for the company. And it's, not without its perils and obvious stresses and exhilarations. And, I'm waiting to hear about something, and I'll find out tomorrow. But I think that, an entrepreneur should always be cognizant, because there'll be lots of people, certainly money people, who will like to, discount you or devalue you. It's good for them, right? But if it's something that you're passionate about, there's certain things that are not on a balance sheet that you bring to a company, and that there'll be opportunities. I just had a very rigorous conversation with an attorney who was, her job is to needle me and find the holes and devalue me whenever she can. And I think it was a little bit of a negotiating tactic. And at first I was like a little bit shell-shocked, and then something rose up in me and said, you know what? No. You know what? I'm not attached to the result. At the end of the day, I want the best team for this company. And I want the best team for me as the founder. I want to make sure I'm happy here. If I'm not happy here, then we got a problem. And you got to know that we got a problem. And so I felt it wasn't a feeling of like, I need money and give me the money, and I'm finding the money, and hopefully you'll give me the money, give me the money, give me the money. It was like, no, this has got to work for everybody involved, or else the business doesn't work at all. And so that became my focus. Is less money focused, but more about who are these people at the table. I'm going to be married to them. I'm going to be working on this business that I'm very passionate about, that I've spent my own money, time, energy. All of y'all sitting here, you have nothing invested. I have more invested here than money. Your money can be written off on a balance sheet. This is my life. This is my passion. The why that I'm doing this is the thing that's been fueling. And you
can't lose sight of that. That mission statement is so important. You also are a recipient of a micro grant from LaunchBox, so it's very exciting. Congratulations, supporting Harriet. You're currently building a philanthropic line as well.
Yeah.
Why is the community piece important to you? This is not just building a business, but building a business that can help others. Talk to us about that.
So I'm very inspired by a couple entrepreneurs. One of them is the great Steve Jobs. I think that he's a fascinating, incredible, I think Steve Jobs is really an artist. He was an artist. And he said, and I listen to his speeches often for inspirations, just like when I had a tough day, after that thing with that attorney, I was like, I got to listen to some inspirational tapes, I guess soon. And so he said that that ideas are assets. And it was important to remember that. I'm sorry. What was your question
ideas
again?
are assets. That's good.
Yeah. You had a specific question.
But the philanthropic piece.
Yeah. And so, and one of the things that he also said was that when things get tough, focus on the why you're doing it, because it's easy to get mired in the numbers. It's easy to get, like this person said no, or this didn't go quite the way that and it's easy to get caught up in that, and I don't want to call it negativity of that, but, unless you've learned something from it, don't spend too much time there. You gotta get what you learned from that and get out of that and get back onto the why. Why am I doing this? The mission of Harriet is to help make the world a better place one hair at a time. So that when I have the thing from the attorney, I got to check out from that, why am I doing this? How am I making the world a better place one hair at a time? And that keeps me continuing on my journey. I tried a lot of different things with Harriet, hair shows and speaking at events or this, that, and the other, retailers. And one of the things that I tried that I found to be personally inspiring and joyful, and that was very much in keeping with the mission of the company, was when I visited churches. It was very interesting. And it probably the foundation of that was the book, I Found God in My Hair. It's right. That's an obvious connection. But who's expecting to find or buy hair care products in the church? Not very many people. I don't have a lot of competition there. And in a very organic way, I've been able to relate my woes with my hair, the patience or the resilience that I've learned a result from having this crazy hair. I've been able to connect them back to my everyday life. So
you mentioned that, when in mentioning the churches, I think I want to ask you a little bit about the network that surrounds you, because we've talked about building a team, getting funding. I'm fortunate. I want to give a shout out to my CEO ladies. I'm part of a group of 6 women who are all solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, and we call it CEO not because we're CEOs, but it stands for challenge each other. And we meet monthly, and we get together and share ideas and share successes and failures and kind of try to lift each other up. We have a group text that goes and keeps it going. But you mentioned finding some important support in the church space. Is there a network that you have that's helped support you through this whole process?
There are a couple of networks I have, yes. One of them, interestingly enough, is a random Facebook group called Entrepreneur, I think it's called Entrepreneur Exchange. And it's a Facebook group, just entrepreneurs, most of whom have gone through Shark Tank. And Shark Tank did reach out to me. I didn't think that it was, it wasn't appropriate for me and for the brand for a number of reasons. But I'm part of this Facebook group, and we share information. Like, hey, you on Amazon? FBA, give me 3 tips on how to optimize my listing, right? So a lot of us are on Amazon, and then we'll all chime in and help. Well, this helped for me, and here's this link, and this video here, and these are the, it's like you get this like sort of plethora of information, and people are exchanging based on their, this person called me to ask me about this, or sell me something, and then there be 10 people like, he called me too. That's BS. Don't even I'm from the Bronx. I don't have a potty mouth. But, don't go down that route. And this is the experience that I've had, and here's why. And so it's been very helpful. Also I've been able to, very fortunately, I have a loose and unofficial group of business people who have been helpful to me. These people are very successful, and they have been incredibly generous with their time and their expertise. I'm very grateful to them, and they've been enormously helpful to me.
It's important to have that. Well,
Yeah.
we want to open it up to the room. We want to thank Tanya. If we can just give her a round of applause, and we'll take questions.
And thank you, Ashley, very much. Okay, at this time, we'd like to, as Ashley said, open it up to any questions and answers of either women, Ashley or Tanya. Question, Denise. Hold on, Denise.
You can just introduce yourself and say where you're from. That'd be great.
We have to speak in the mic so we get it on camera.
I'm Denise Ogden. I'm a professor here at Penn State Lehigh Valley. You talked about failing and getting up again, especially that rejection. But those first times that you were rejected, that's always really difficult, and we all face those times of rejection. Could you go into more detail early on how you overcame those devastating times when people said no or you had a failure?
Well, I think failure is a part of life. I mean, it's a step on the road to success, And if you think of it in any other way, it will debilitate you to the point where you won't be able to get up. And everything that I have failed on, and I really put that in quotes, I've always been able to look at it and say, what did I need to learn? Did I get what I was supposed to learn from that? Because maybe it was just really a learning opportunity. Because I think we all get what we're supposed to get. If it's a job, we book the job that we're supposed to get, or a opportunity in a store. I mean, eventually we'll get there if we're resilient and persistent enough. But what was the opportunity to learn from that experience after I get out of the devastation of it, or what actually really the answer to that question is to release any idea of what you thought it should be, and let what it's supposed to be just let it be. And I think that can put us in a debilitating state with failure, because we had some idea of what it was supposed to be, and it wasn't. You know what? Okay, it wasn't. And so maybe what it's supposed to be, not this way, but it's actually this way. It's actually that way. Or it's actually that way. So, yeah, I think releasing some concept of what it is supposed to look like.
Those
Because-
expectations. Like
yeah.
you have an expectation of what it's supposed to be, and therefore it becomes that thing or that failure, instead of maybe self-evaluating and saying, perhaps this wasn't meant to be, perhaps I'm supposed to go in a different direction.
Right.
And evaluating, you can't control the rejection, you can't control the other people's reactions, but you can control how you respond and what
Right.
you do with it. So I think in rejections, asking yourself, what can I be doing and how do I need to respond to this?
Mhm.
So, all right, we have any other questions out there?
Yes, Julie. Hold on, Julie.
I want to say I love the dynamic a couple years ago at the chamber event between you and your mom and your sister. And how much of your drive and your motivation do you think came from your family upbringing versus your environment or your school or your peers?
Yeah. Probably more than I think about. So my mom, as I mentioned, had me at 15 years old. She had 2 children by the time she was 17 years old. My mother's always been a very hardworking person in her life, and she was a woman who got things done. And so when you have a 15-year-old mom, it's one thing to have that sort of inspiration in the house, but then also when you have a 15-year-old mom, you realize that there's a lot of things you're going to have to learn in life on your own a little bit. And so, it forced, I think, my sister and I to be extremely independent beings, and which puts you in good stead, in terms of figuring things out in life and all that stuff. But certainly, education was something that was really important in my household. I'm probably the only one in the family without an advanced degree, and school is like, it's cool, but you know what? School life is real more interesting to me. I shouldn't be saying that in the university, right? It's horrible. But I did daydream.
But you got your degree.
Yes, I did get it, but I was like, let's get this thing on the road. But the thing about education is, I think it helps you to at least my education, where I went to school and the type of environment that was, it really was a place that fostered and encouraged individuality and independence. And I think that's an important trait to have, certainly too as an entrepreneur.
Well, and it just built upon that foundation that your mom gave you, having to be. And I think it's a cool message because, especially for young people out there, one of the things we find a lot is problem-solving skills are really a challenge. And I'm raising 2 teenagers at the beginning, and I think about it every single day. And instead of giving tasks, I try to give instruction that allows them the freedom to figure it out. And it just doesn't mean it's going to always go right, but I'm hoping that when they're 20-something and getting hired, they can solve a problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important gift that you were really given, that you had to be independent. Yeah, it's pushed you forward.
Yeah. And it's a plus and a minus to that independence, too, right? So it's great to be independent, but you also have to learn in life, you don't do everything alone. You can't do
need a
everything
team.
alone. So you know, there's a balance, and that's what I'm learning too, because like I said, you do this business and yourself, and it's like now there's a line in the sand. You cannot go on the other line of on the other side of this line doing this yourself. It is not. No, this is not. That's not the way to do it, and that's fine for now. You know, it's been fine for this leg of the journey, and I call it Harriet 1.0. Now Harriet 2.0 has to look different. Now Harriet 2.0 actually has to have financing, and she has to have a team.
But what an incredible realization, because
Yeah.
really that sometimes is the difference between success and failure at
Right.
that 1 to 2.0 stage,
Right.
because people back off, they don't realize that they have to draw that line in the sand to
Right.
take those next steps. So,
Yeah.
we have any other questions? A few more minutes left. Gentleman in the back, a brave gentleman.
Yes.
Hello there.
Hi.
I thought my chair fell. I apologize. You clarified that, and I agree with you that life is a learning experience, and that the most important goal to any business and the mission statement, vision statement, is to why the business exists, and it brings forward engagement and also retainment, and that without all of us together, we certainly wouldn't be in the situation where we are now, where it's beneficial for us and ultimately each other. My question to you is, besides the why aspect, what has motivated you to become to what you are now? What is the driving aspect besides loss and everything else? I mean, profit, essentially, in my opinion, isn't a measurement of value. What you value is what you bring to the table. And I know you clarified that, but I guess I want to go in depth with just your approach on it.
Right, of what my why is.
Yes.
My why really is my mission statement. And I keep it in front of my head all the time. And how are you making this world a better place, one hair at a time? How are you doing that? How are you doing that? Are you doing that? You know, every shiny object that comes your way or every opportunity is not necessarily one that you should always do. Focus on the why you're doing it, and only really focus in and say yes to the things that are in keeping with the why. I don't want to, you know, I'm much older than I look. You know, I'll be 50 years old in May. And yeah, right. Well, you know, but I don't want to toil on the planet for too much longer with certain things, and that motivates me. That keeps me very focused to achieving my goals and what it is that I desire to do while I'm here. It helps to have a purpose, and it helps to for other things to sort of go by the wayside if you remind yourself constantly of that purpose. And I want to do this, and it's you know, it's I want to do it. I want to be able to help my community, and I want to say, you know, at the end it was like, well done, good for you. You did what you came to do. You helped a lot of people. You know, making money is not a hobby, nor is it a nonprofit organization. This is what I had to tell Whole Foods when they wanted to, you know, sell my products for free. I'm like, what is it? You're probably making millions of dollars every year by every young entrepreneur who comes into the store and wants their product on your shelf, and you're asking them to give you 6 products. I can't imagine what that's doing for your business. That they're selling it and making 100% profit off of this thing that you've taught. No, that's not an option. What I can do is, you can have the six you know, the case or whatever it is you're ordering, and I'm happy to come in and support it to make sure that the product turns and that people buy it. And so, you know, I want to leave, and I want to leave in a good space, and knowing that I did all that I could to help people, and you know, and that's probably what I'll spend probably the final third of my life doing, more than the business stuff, just helping kids and women. That's very, very important to me, and that'll be it. And I can, you know, sail off into the sunset and feel good about my time here.
Well, thanks, Tanya. I think that that's all we could all hope for, and we certainly hope it's not the last quarter, but the third.
Yes, well,
All right,
right.
can we-
Let's hope.
Uh,
God willing.
Can we give Tanya Wright a round of applause and thank her for being here today?